can't know unless you've crawled through glass. You can't know unless you've had that dark night of the soul. That is the teacher.
DavidJi, welcome back to the Mindful podcast.
What an honor to be here. So happy to be here. I love you. I love your podcast. I love your books. I love Ireland. I love your audience. So I can't imagine a place I'd rather be than right here, right now with you.
Well, Ireland loves you because the last time you were here, we did two shows together in the Sugar Club and they were phenomenal. And I was so full of confidence after we put those shows on. They sold out in a couple of hours. I was like, man, my Busy and Wreck tour, it is going to fly. I was super confident. And then I put them on sale and they didn't sell out in 3 hours. And I realized that's the DavidJi factor. Maybe he had something to do with the ticket sales. And of course you do, because your voice is traveling around the globe. The ripples of your own voice travel across the Atlantic. And so many people here in Ireland are such a massive fan of yours and just love the work that you're doing.
Well, thank you. It's that was pretty exciting. We actually, you and I both as meditation teachers and heavily meditated meditators both had a little bit of anxiety when we suddenly like, let's release the tickets overnight. And then we woke up and it's like we got all these emails from people. I didn't get my tickets. I got shut out. I stayed up all night and clicked send, click buy, and it was gone already. So that was pretty hysterical.
Yeah, well, that's just a little teaser. That's just a little hors d'oeuvre. You'll have to come back and we'll do a bigger show. But right now, this is the show, and we're delighted to have you on. I want to talk about purpose and meaning because it's
Yeah.
something I've been thinking about quite a bit. I wrote a bit about it in my book, and I guess it can elude a lot of people. We touched on it the last time we spoke, but I really want to go a little bit deeper with it with you because sometimes the idea of life purpose, and you phrased it beautifully recently in one of your own podcasts. What are you being called to do? Do you think that everyone is called to do something?
Oh, absolutely. But just like there's probably sounds happening outside of your recording studio, I'm a little too far away to hear them right now. So it's, I think we are all being called, we are all being summoned. And you can be an atheist, you can be a devout believer, and I think everywhere in between. But when we can quiet down just a little bit, quiet those fluctuations of the mind, we can hear the whispers of our heart. And I think everyone's being called, everyone's being spoken to, everyone's being whispered to, you know, but not everyone's listening and not everyone is quiet enough to even hear. So if you're thinking, I've never been called in my life, I don't know what the heck he's even talking about, I would say probably you also have not gotten very quiet. So this is an invitation to maybe take a few moments sometime, not during the podcast, of course, but at some other time where we could sit down and maybe connect to nature. And maybe it's in that moment where you're not on your device, where you're not formulating something in your head. Because, Dermot, even your mindful book and podcast and tour and as well, busy and wrecked. These are all about being in the head. And when we can move from the head down to that space, just a little bit lower, I'm not talking about the mouth, just a little bit lower than that, then that's where the magic happens. So I believe if you haven't been called yet, quiet down a little bit and you will. And certainly, who is better to teach you how to quiet down than Dermot Whelan? No one. No one. So you're already listening. So you should definitely check out his meditations and definitely check out his books. But I think we're all being summoned, and I think we're all at some deep, deep level what are the words that I have longed to hear? Right? It might sound like a woo-woo, too squishy kind of, conversation, but even asking ourselves, since I'm 5, since I'm 10, since I'm 20, since my divorce, since I got fired, since I got, whatever the thing is, what are the words that I have longed to hear? And I think just introducing that interrogatory or dialogue inside is really a powerful first step in being able to listen, because that voice, it's going to come from inside of you, even if it's in your head. Those words you've longed to hear, probably better to put your hand on your heart and close your eyes and ask that question, but the answers will come or start to percolate.
Do people tend to add a big grandiose meaning to it in terms of like when you think I have a calling or I have a purpose, do we automatically assume that maybe it has to be something really impressive? Like I now, I go off and I build schools in India, or you know, or I create the biggest company in the world, or kind of calling or a purpose be, for want of a better word, small.
Well, I think there's been like a big misinterpretation of some of the most ancient texts. If we look at, like, go back 2,300 years to the Bhagavad Gita, and this ancient Sanskrit text that's out there, and it's the original conversations with God. You have this great warrior, the greatest warrior of all time, who's on the battlefield, and his forces are behind him. All his people are behind him. This is classic, like Braveheart stuff, and his team is behind him. And across the battlefield, he sees another giant army opposing him. And but yet he's many of these people are kids he grew up with in school, and teachers, and religious figures and relatives in his life. So he's torn. Here's the greatest warrior of all time, but he doesn't want a warrior. And so 18 chapters of conversations with God where he's like, how am I supposed to live my life? What am I supposed to do? And Einstein read this every single day. So did Emerson, so did Thoreau, so did Gandhi. But just that really, really deep question, how am I supposed to live my life? And so we suddenly realize, it goes deep and deep into life and death and purpose and meaning and love and why are we here, and all that stuff. And the answers are there. But when we ask that deeper question, for ourselves, what's my purpose in life? That's like, whoa, 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 slow it down. Who knows? It's too big. I believe the Bhagavad Gita is not about Arjuna, the great warrior's purpose in life. It's what's he being summoned to do right now? What is this moment? And so that way, all the stuff that happened in our past, it's important. It's the foundation upon which we stand, but it doesn't necessarily define us. And you, as a shapeshifter, one of the great alchemical shapeshifters of all time, you know that, you feel that, because what you're summoned to do and what you're called to do and what your purpose and meaning are in one moment does not necessarily define what that next moment will be. And I think I'm a big fan of personal and professional rebranding, rebirthing, re-emerging, um, redefining on a daily basis. That might be a little too much pressure. Okay, maybe we could do it, maybe every quarter or every 6 months or something like that. But I believe, Dermot, right here, right now, in this moment, you have been summoned for something or have been called to do something. Me too. And everyone who's listening, imagine the tens of thousands of listeners and us. Every single one of us had to make a certain decision that ultimately guided us to this moment. All those breadcrumbs that we all have dropped and followed to lead us to this. And if you would turn left instead of right at some stop sign 15 years ago, none of this is here. So I believe each of these defining moments is so core and so critical. And I think we should let go of all the pressure. Like, why have I been delivered to the planet to save the people? Well, how about right now? I'm going to the grocery store. I'm going to the supermarket. Maybe I've been summoned to smile to a person that I pass in the cereal aisle. Maybe that's what it is. So it doesn't have to be like invent the cure for this. Perhaps it's just who's the me who's going to show up. And that's why one of the questions I ask myself every single day when I start my morning meditation practice is I'll ask myself for an intention of the day. It used to be for stuff. It used to be like, I want a Tesla in the driveway. I want fame. I want a little pile of cash. I want more crypto, like whatever it was. And now, over the years, I would like to think I've evolved rather than devolved regarding this particular question. Now I ask myself, what's the state of mind? What's the state of being that I want to embrace just for today? What's the trait, the quality, or the characteristic that I want to amplify or awaken just for today? Essentially, I'm asking, who's the me who's going to show up just for today? And that takes all the pressure off, like, why am I here and why have I been summoned for the last 20 years? And it takes all the pressure, and what am I hoping to accomplish, and what will my big wins will be? How about who's the me who's just going to show up today?
And just a little insight into your practice. When you ask that question, do you come up with, today I will feel courageous, or I will feel calm, or when you're asking what way you want to be, do you come up with an idea, an example, or what do you do in your mind just to get an idea of what's happening in your meditation?
I'll actually walk myself through a deeper exploration of that. And again, I'm sitting there with my eyes closed. I have nothing else to do. I'm not on my device, and not being, no one's asking me. I try to wake up before anyone in my house, even the dogs, could even flinch, so that it's just me time. But I'll actually ask the question. And again, I don't know how the day is going to unfold. I don't know the challenges that I'll face. I don't know the news that I'll hear. I don't know the things that will poke me or trigger me or disappoint me or make me really happy. So I'll ask the question, okay, like how have I been lately? I've been maybe impatient, or I've been maybe haven't really been a good listener, or maybe haven't spontaneously told someone that I care about them or that they make me happy. So, based on that, what would I like a little more of? So, that's really the question that I'll ask when I really distill it down. What would I like a little bit more of? And sometimes it's patience. Sometimes it's self-compassion. Sometimes it's forgiveness. I need to forgive myself. I've been beating myself up. I've been living in a little week of self-loathing. I would like to not live in that space. Maybe I could invite in just a little bit self-loathing. Sometimes I will actually say, how about a little bit less self-loathing here? It doesn't have to be, how about some self-aggrandizement, or, it could simply be, how about I hate myself a little bit less today? That would be a big move, I think. Or forgive myself for that thing already, that thing I said or that thing I
Mm.
did. So I'll actually like drill it down, get really granular and say like, what could I use a little bit more of in my life? So, you have to be very, very honest with yourself. You have to be willing to like hold up the mirror, which most of us never want to do. Why should I do that? We live in lands of denial and rationalization. Isn't
Mm.
that spectacular? Um, but if you really want to show up as a better expression or a better version, or really step into the calling of the moment, then like who's the me who's going to show up? And this started with me a bunch of years ago where I began like theming my months because I loved my life and I loved the spontaneous nature of it. But I realized that I'm just sort of like waking up and waiting for the wind to blow. I'm like a leaf that's already fallen. It's
Mm.
separated from the tree and it's on its downward trajectory, and I'm just waiting for the wind. And I wanted to live with greater intention. And I found that when I started doing that, uh, I was really aware of what I was consuming in terms of food or drink or content that I was letting, come into me. And I also found that I was sort of I thought, making some better decisions. And of course, meditation is a core element in that, because if I would make every single decision without taking a breath, I'd be back into that shite hole that I, existed in, in the first half of my life. But instead, I get to go, let me reflect for a moment here. What's sort of not what's lacking, because then we could live a whole thing. Let me try to fill the hole. But, what could I have a little bit more of? And the answers to that, sometimes I'll keep asking the question. Sometimes it takes a little bit. Just, what could I use a little bit more of? What could I use a little bit more of? Other times it's so overt. It's so obvious that, what could you use a little bit more of, or, a little bit less of? Well, how about standing in front of the refrigerator staring at that pie? That has not served us, unless that's a special meditation with and I have one of those, I have a glass refrigerator, glass window. So it's horrible, because every time I pass it, I see like a muffin calling to me, or I see, this food element. So I have to like walk by the
I
fridge,
didn't even know
and
you
block
could
it out.
get. I didn't know you could get such a thing. I didn't know they'd made refrigerators with see-through doors.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they do. Yeah. I've been living with it now for 3 years. It's quite a companion. It's altered my life. I'll walk by sometimes and go, stop it. Just stop it. And, and it's a powerful metaphor for, like, if we don't know what's behind the door, we're oblivious and carefree. But once we see, the
Yeah.
giant little bowl of porridge, calling to us, then we can do it. But honestly, I just did, I really started not just theming my months, but then allowing the intention that I would invite into me in my morning meditation to support that theme. So I started that in February of last year,
Mm.
after I got a blood panel back, that I'd never taken a blood panel in like 90 years. And then suddenly I get a blood panel, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm seconds away from taking my last breath. I feel great, but clearly the numbers say different. So I was like, my theme for February is going to be health. I'm going to totally alter my diet. I call it the enlightened exchange. I'm going to replace, because Aristotle said nature abhors a vacuum. So I wanted to let go of something that really is not nourishing, but I had to bring in a replacement, an enlightened exchange that would like level it up. So I
Mm.
gave up potato chips, or crisps, as you would call them. And I replaced it with celery, just as crunchy. But it's actually, celery is like a green water delivery system. There's no nutrient in celery at all, but there's no nutrient in Frito-Lays or anything else out there. So I, figured, let me make that enlightened exchange. Let me stop drinking soda, pop or cola, and I'll replace that with sparkling water, another enlightened exchange. Anyway, I did that in about 10 areas of my life. And at the end of February, I was like, damn, I lost the 20 pounds I gained in COVID in that first 6 months. That's unbelievable. And, I did it with alcohol too. Let me, not have any alcohol for the month of February. And instead, let me find like amazing, delicious things to drink that were non-alcoholic. Because, usually it's like O'Doul's. It's like, oh my God, who would ever want to drink that? Or like, those beers that have no alcohol, they taste like swill. They taste like, oh, sewer water. Let me fill a bottle with this. So it's like, how great can I, what can I fill myself with liquid wise that's not, that. So these little types of enlightened exchanges, these little types of shifts, and every day when I would be planting my intention, like, what do I want more of? And it never was like self-control, because I don't want to be feeling that, like, oh, you've got to be in a straitjacket to not do the things you want to do. But I flipped it and said, like, how about, it's not self-control, it's will. It's will to have no alcohol in my body this month. It's will to have no chips in my body, or fried foods in my body this month. These are things, it's like almost I'm going to the bank and making a deposit. This is like powerful stuff. Let's see what my ROI is, my return on investment. And it was transformational. I felt better. I was breathing better. I was sleeping better. And I was like, whoa, okay, this works. Oh, and trust me, there were days where I woke up and I was like, what do I want? Like, a giant steak. That was my intention for the day. Who do I want to be? A giant steak. Um, and there were days where I've planted the intention, today, let me be patient. And after I've scorched the village like 4 times before noon, I'm like, it's not really working for me. But thanks for the reminder. Maybe I could be patient for the second half of the day instead of like sending 5,000 emails. Did you get my last one? Did you get my last one? So, I
Mm.
think that it's an ongoing journey and it's all about awareness. And I think starting small is really beneficial. And if you're not sure of your calling or your destiny or your meaning, we can go on and on with that. How about just asking yourself, what could I use a little bit more of right now in my life to fulfill me?
I love that the idea that purpose doesn't have to be grandiose, that it can be the smaller things of my purpose is how I am today for the people around me and the world I interact with. One thing that always kind of confuses me, and I never quite know how it sits with me, manifesting. So much of purpose is sort of, it crosses over into manifesting, and it's a very buzzy word at the moment. And it's great to sit there and visualize what we want to manifest in our lives. But how does that then sit with being grateful for what you have in the moment? And is it possible to do the two things at once? That always kind of confuses me that if we're going, I'm going to visualize. I give you an example. There's a beautiful house in my neighborhood, and myself and my wife have become obsessed with this house. And we like to daydream about living in this house. And God, wouldn't it be amazing? And then we're like, let's manifest this house. And then you automatically kind of feel guilty. And you're like, but the house we're in now is nice. Like it's a lovely house. We're really lucky to live there. So how do you balance manifesting gratitude and purpose and all these things without just living constantly somewhere else other than the present moment?
Yeah. Well, great question. And, it's not like it's a question just for our age. We can go back 2,600 years to the time of the Buddha. And, the Buddha described sort of like this low grade dissatisfaction that everyone has with the present moment. It's called dukkha, Dukkha. Of course, we interpret it as suffering, right? Everything is suffering. But I refer to it, I think about it as like just a low grade dissatisfaction. I go to my favorite restaurant, and I sit at the table that's not my regular table. And so my first issues are, but wait, I'm gonna, what about my table? And, we could apply that to like every single moment in our life, just a low grade dissatisfaction that's sort of like always rumbling through. It's like when there's like a lightning storm and you hear the thunder just like rumbling in the distance. That's our low grade dissatisfaction with the present moment. And it's sort of like someone gives you an amazing piece of chocolate, and I know you are so embedded with the chocolate mystery and your dad's chocolate and chocolate in general. And you and I have done chocolate tasting meditations,
Yeah.
but it's sort of like someone says, hey, you want a piece of chocolate? And they're holding like a bag that's obviously filled with chocolate, or a plate with lots of chocolate. And you're like, yeah. Like as you take that chocolate and pop it in your mouth, you haven't maybe even taken a bite, and you're thinking, I wonder if it's rude for me to request another one. You haven't even been savoring it yet. It hasn't even hit your taste buds, whatever, and you're already on to the next one. And we can look at that in our relationships. We can look at that in our jobs. We could look at that in all the steps we take as we journey through life. So because we've got this low grade dissatisfaction with the present moment. And that's why manifesting is such big business. People have made tens of millions of dollars on offering their, manifest with me courses. Um, and, my philosophy is everything you want, you've already been given it. Perhaps you don't know, perhaps there are blockages around you. Perhaps you have like wrapped yourself so tightly that there's so much you need to unlearn, or let go of. I think of it as like dropping veils. Like we're wrapped in all these veils, and if we could just drop a few of them, then suddenly it's like, ah, the light's coming in. I thought it was all darkness here. And so I believe the secret to manifesting, well, I believe the secret to everything begins with yoga sta, establishing ourselves in the present moment, just getting still, even if it's just for a millisecond. And I believe that attention, intention, and action are the three components that will deliver everything in life that you want. But a lot of times we're like, yeah, 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 I get it intellectually. But if I have attention and intention and no action, well, that's just wishful thinking. And if I have attention and action and no intention, then it's just purposeless. And if I have intention and action, but no attention, no stillness to start it off, then everything's going to be knee jerk. So that flow of attention, intention, and action, because ultimately we do have to take a step in the direction of whatever we think we want in that moment. But perhaps in our getting still, right before we get to the, and now give me this phase of the process, because I'm entitled to it and you haven't been delivering lately. So come on, bring it. um, before we get there, maybe we could cultivate, even if it's just a 1 minute or a 2 minute or a 5 minute, just let me settle in and allow my attention to be right here, right now. Because why would we want something else? Because we're either in the past or the future, not because we're in the present. So if we can just keep bringing ourselves back to the present moment and finding the magnificence and say, oh, well, here I am right now, which is why right before my intention setting part of my meditation practice, I will ask a few questions. I refer to them as sacred questions. Number one, who am I when I'm at my best? Number two, what am I grateful for? And number three, what does my heart truly long for? And I believe asking those questions, which are probably the deepest questions we could ever ask. They're way beyond the question of who do I have to send that email to, and did I pay that bill yet, and what time do I have my lunch appointment? All that stuff gets wiped away, and especially if it's one of the first things you do. Who am I when I'm at my best? What am I grateful for? What does my heart truly long for? I spend a minute. Sometimes answers don't come, but there's actually a science behind gratitude. So I'll do that first, ask those three questions, wait about a minute and let answers come to me for a minute. And then I'll take a deep breath in, let it all go. And then I'll go into my intention uh, setting or my seed planting part of the practice, my manifesting, my co creating part, and say, well, I've already asked like a couple of really important questions to tee it up for me. And now when I ask that question, what could I use a little bit more of? Oh, I've stirred up a little stuff. It becomes a lot clearer to me.
Mm. So I'm still not sure about say the house example again.
Do you have some low grade dissatisfaction rumbling through you like thunder in the distance?
I just like I get be present and appreciate what you have and see the wonder in all the wonderful things you have. But if we all did that, then nobody would do anything different or strive to get other things or so
Right,
it's
right. So it's the
how
space
does that
it's the
how do they sit with each other?
yeah. Well, I did that, just so you know. I was unhappy with the house that I was living in. And this was right before 9/11. So 2000, you know, 2001-ish. And I was
Mm.
like, oh, I want to leave my house. I've been living in it for like 10 years. I'm so sick of it. And I suddenly stumbled upon this house that was on the cliffs of New Jersey, looking at Manhattan, looking at the World Trade Center. And even the realtor said to me, you know, every day you can wake up and look at the World Trade Center. And I said, wow, that would be so powerful. Well, I never moved into that house. And obviously, no, if I moved there, I would not have seen the World Trade Center every day when I woke up. But, you know, then I moved. Then I left and went to California. 3,000, did the geographic cure, we call it. Traveled 3,000 miles west to California and lived in a place and said, ultimately, after like 10 years, okay, I think I'm done. And at a certain point, I was like, oh, that's the dream house. That's the dream house. Saw that house, drove past it, I don't know, 1,000 times. I live in the dream house now. And so I just want to tell you, do it, make the move and get the dream house because I have all these other issues and challenges and problems in my life, but not about house, not about house. You know, I live in California where they won't insure your house anymore. So that's like a really funny thing. So I live in an uninsured dream house. And if a fire comes raging in, um, I don't know what happens then. I'll be moving into your dream house with you and Karina. But
I don't think we'll be in the dream house either, by the way. It's like it's so far beyond our pay grade. So, but it's just
oh,
one of those daydreams that we keep having. And we were sitting on the bench today and we're like, are we wrong for dreaming about that thing? Should we not just be focusing on what we have? I'm going to talk to David G later. I'm going to ask him, how do we make peace with this?
this is one of the deep yoga teachings. It's the fifth yama of going back 2,000 years, and it's called aparigraha. Aparigraha. When you put an A before a Sanskrit word, it means not that thing. So parigraha means envy, and aparigraha means, you know, non-coveting. But I'll tell you, the exact same thing happened to me. Joe Biden had just become president, and there was like a big festival on TV with all these famous people. And one of the musical acts was John Legend. Now, at the time, I had just, you know, gained about 35 pounds during the first 6 months of COVID. All I did was eat and drank until I was ready to explode. Couldn't even fit into anything. Had to just walk around in muumuus, you know, during those first 6 months. And so suddenly, John Legend starts playing, and I'm just staring there, and I'm going, damn, he is just gorgeous, and his suit, he is so elegant, and oh my God, I want that suit. And I thought, oh yeah, Bloton whale person, you in that suit would just be a horror to anyone, the wearer as well as the viewer. And so, but it was an inspiration to me. Yeah, it took me 4 years to ultimately drop that weight. But so I view that low grade dissatisfaction is a teaching. It's an important teaching. It invites us to go, what am I grateful for? And it invites us to also be inspired to perhaps step up in another aspect of my life. So when we talk about manifesting, I don't know that we get the thing that we think we want to manifest, but I think it's a teaching, it's an awareness tool that will give us two opportunities. One, let me hug my wife and my kids and my house and kiss the floor of every inch of my house. And I know you have a he shed and a she shed, and how great is that where you get to like work simultaneously and gaze at each other. And at the same time, it's an inspiration for you to say, you know what? Um, I sort of like where I'm living. Maybe I could put attention on like the other stuff that's really not working for me because this actually is working. I'm just a greedy SOB. So maybe I can, look at other areas of my life where I would like to level up, where I would like to take things to the next level. We
Hmm.
all have, look at your tour, look at your books. These are all co-creations. These are all manifestations. Where does creativity come from? It comes from friction. It comes from that spark. That's where magnificence happens. So first we have to get still, and then we have to acknowledge, ooh, there's a little bit of grinding of the gears here. I wonder what spark, hopefully it's not blowing up your car, but wonder what spark that's going to create. And that's where the real powerful teaching is. So, when we think I want to manifest my soulmate, no, you don't. You just want a relationship where you adore the person and they adore you. the soulmate gibberish? Because I've people have said to me, I'm trying to co-create, manifest my soulmate. I'm like, oh, what does that even mean? And they go, well, 6'5". I go, well, that knocks me out. Dark hair. I'm like, well, that knocks me out again. Suddenly like all these, various types of situations. But it's like, what do you mean you want a soulmate? Well, you probably just want to feel loved. And so when we come up with the things we think we want out of lack and or desperation or sadness, well, those aren't states of mind to make any decision in under any circumstances. you know, uh, we need to yoga sta. We need to step back. We need to get present and realize, you know what? I love that house. It's beautiful. Let me drive by it every day and see the beauty that's in my life because I get to drive past it. But God, to manage that thing and to, fill all the rooms and then to do all this other stuff, I want to make people light up. That's really what my agenda is right now. That's my purpose right now, lighting people up and helping them be a little calmer, helping them be a little happier, helping them be a little less stressed out. That's really, or unwrecked, as you would say. That's really where the magnificence happens. So I would think that whatever, when you look at that thing, you could probably make different versions of that house in your own house. And who knows, maybe one day, maybe one day that's the house you're going to move into. I was actually renting this other house. I was renting it and renting it and renting. I rented it for 12 years. And then I said, wait a second. It would be cheaper for me to buy my dream house than to keep paying this person who I'm renting from. And that was really the shift in me. So it wasn't like I got more money. It was like, oh, let me save some money by stopping renting and then finding my dream house in the process.
Yeah. Do you think people underestimate the uncomfortable parts of finding their purpose? Like, say you're people listening, they're in a particular job, they're feeling not particularly connected to it or purposeful or doesn't seem to have a lot of meaning for them. And then they decide, okay, I'm actually going to do this other thing that I think has more meaning for me. But that transition is uncomfortable. There's financial worries, there's all kinds of anxieties, there's maybe hiccups along the way, there's things to learn, all that stuff, out of your comfort zone. And then you get onto the other path. Sometimes I see it in my mind as like you're on one forest trail that's nice and even and clear, but you're trying to get to the other one. But to get to the other one, you got to sort of push through the brambles and the sticky bushes, and eventually you sort of get coughed out onto the other path, and this is the one that you feel more comfortable on. Do you think that maybe a lot of the time when we think I'm going to find my purpose, that we only count that journey as the good stuff when actually it's the shit stuff that happens to us was gently maneuvering us into our new purpose as well?
Isn't the thing that we're actually seeking that deep, deep challenge of having to crawl on our hands and knees through the brambles? We would never say, "Oh yes, please, I'll take the hands and knees brambles path." But isn't that really, it's like at a certain point, walking on that even, steady path, it's like, okay, there's like a commercial on TV where the guy has had like 15 moon landings. And they're like the new people who've come with him to the moon, on this moon landing, like, look at the Earth, look at the Earth. And he's like, ugh, seen once, seen it all. And he's playing golf and he swings and he hits it into a divot, and suddenly like a ball goes, and he goes, typical. It's like, it's a mindset. At a certain point, it's like, the path is, a little too easy. I'm not challenged. I'm not feeling like there's like, what's the point? Am I squeezing the nectar out of life? Or am I just like allowing this to be like, well, it's not a bad life. So, and then I'll die one day. Is that really where we want to, do we want to live? Some of us may want to. Do we want to live the mediocre existence? And I don't mean with like fanfare or on the global stage or anything like that. But, if there's a dream that you've had, if not now, when? You gonna wait till you're 90 to actualize? Um,
There's a great
So
example of
I
this
think
actually.
that,
Sorry to interrupt you. It just something popped to my mind. There's a guy
yeah.
called Niall Harbison. He's an Irish guy, and he was a chef, and he used to cook amazing meals for like the biggest, important, most important celebrities on yachts, all around the world. And he was cooking for like Bill Gates and his crew, and he was cooking for Bono and all these big names in music and business and all that. And this, he felt like this was his calling. This was his thing that he was born to do because he loved cooking, and this was obviously the highest end of that kind of world. Um, and then he got caught up in addiction, and he was drinking too much, and he was taking drugs. And on a New Year's Day in Thailand, he ended up in hospital in a really, really bad way, and could have died from the partying that he was doing that night and all the things he was taking. So he then stopped chefing, was in a really awful place. And then while he was recovering in Thailand, he helped one stray dog that he came across, and then he helped another one, so on and so forth. And now he runs this animal shelter in Thailand where he saves stray dogs and brings them back to health, and has this social media account now, and he's written a book, and this is his like super calling. But he had to go through all that rock bottom, almost killing himself to get there. Now, hopefully, we all don't have to do that. But I guess your purpose, no matter how much you're looking at the yellow house down the road or that other thing that you think you want, sometimes I guess our real purpose for that time in our life is hiding behind one of those trees, and it's not there in full view, and it's just going to make itself known, whatever you do.
Well, so much of life is timing. And I don't mean that everything is like, oh, it's at the right time, where this is the right moment, or but I've often said that full-on transformation comes with that divine fusion of, or divine convergence of message, messenger, and timing. The message has to be something that's like instantly resonates and like speaks to your heart instantly. The messenger has to be like a trusted source. Maybe it's an author, maybe it's a teacher, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's just a voice that you would absolutely like. Whatever you say, I'm in for it. And that voice can also be a voice that of a dead relative calling to you from the ethers, and it could also be your conversations with God. But when I say timing, I'm really talking about like the window of receptivity, because we've all said, "Oh, if only I knew that when I was 20." You weren't ready for it when you were 20. You weren't paying attention to that. You were not receptive to it. So right now, it looks like you're so highly receptive to the yellow house. But what about the message and the messenger? What's the message that's inviting you to it? And really, looking at, all these other components. So I believe that we go through these waves where we're like very receptive to what's going on outside of us. These are all just tools for attention, really, just opportunities for awareness. But there can be no understanding. There can be no happiness. There can be no dun 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 dun. Dun. None of that can ever exist without the suffering, without the dark night of the soul. We look at your, we would say your uh, light year leap, your quantum leap, from Dermot and Dave onto the stages of traveling through, through the country and talking about your mindful book, and then ultimately your Busy and Wrecked, book, and the Busy and Wrecked tour. But it's not like, oh yeah, well, I think I'll put down the mic and get on stage. There is so much uh, inner turbulence that you've written about and shared inside of you. Like, what if no one laughs? What if no one shows up? What if no one buys a ticket? No, what if, none of that?
Yeah.
So
Karina
like
has
when we
heard
put our
all of
tickets on,
that.
yes,
She-
right. And well, she probably wouldn't be the only one. You've probably let that leak out to your kids and to anyone driving with you and to anyone in a quiet moment. And so suddenly you start to realize You know what? From that, like look at any flower in a garden. There's death in that garden. Leaves have decomposed in there. Animals and insects have decomposed in there. All the nutrients that make the flower or the bush or the tree grow come from essentially a rebirth because they come from all the, I don't know, pain, sadness, death, destruction that has existed. So if you're going to talk about meaning, you know, the relevance of that and the depth of the answer to that, does my life matter? What's my legacy? Or whatever this, am I meant to be doing this thing? You can't know unless you've crawled through glass. You can't know unless you've had that dark night of the soul. That is the teacher. The petty tyrant is the teacher. The universe smacking you in the head with the 2x4. You can't step into your next thing from this mindset. You need to be have a little humility. You need to be knocked down a couple of rungs. You need to have some death and some sadness in your life, some loss in your life to truly allow you, to fully comprehend what you have and what this next thing is. I think no matter what, humans are going to have low grade dissatisfaction with what is. I think we're wired for that. And we always want to like overreach to like, I'm sad. Let me leap into ecstasy. Well, how about you just take a little teeny step into a little less sadness? you know, or own your sadness, or sit with your sadness. Allow your heart to pour out, all its tears. That's how we suddenly have the aha moment. And this is how we move also from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, to PTG, post-traumatic growth. And there's a core component of post-traumatic growth. First, we must see what's befallen us as a challenge, not as a threat. We don't respond well to threats. We fight or run away from threats, but challenges, we step up and meet those. And we have to think, believe, not fake it till you make it, but we have to believe at some level that we will learn and grow from this experience. A friend of mine, their son committed suicide last year, and like, could there possibly even be meaning in that? There's no meaning. He and I went through a very, very, deep and dark journey. Well, he went through the journey. I was just there to support him. But over like, there's no meaning here. There's no lesson here. There's nothing here. But then we got to this place where, like, okay, who are you going to be? Are you learning and growing from this? And now he's redirected his life in a whole different direction, that he was on another path. And now this has helped really inform his path. So sometimes our tears and our agonies and our pain and our suffering, and certainly, our low grade dissatisfaction. The problem with low grade dissatisfaction is it's low grade. So it's like, who's even paying attention to it? It's like, this is just how things are. So when we find ourselves wanting something in the next moment, when I found myself wanting that John Legend suit clearly for someone who's very, very slim and gorgeous looking, what was I really saying to myself? Did I really want that suit? No. I wanted to feel like I believed I, projected that he was feeling. I just want to feel that way. I want to feel, you know, uh, so comfortable in my skin. And so that I didn't need to go out and buy a suit. It allowed me to, like, well, what's going to help me be more comfortable in my skin? Maybe owning who I am without reaching for one more thing, but really accepting and loving and agreeing with, like, well, here's where I am. Can I embrace that? And that will allow me to get to the next moment.
I love it. I love it. And we've kind of circled back to Duca from the start. Although in my head, since you said that word, all I have is Duke can play that game you're playing going around in my head. It's a fun way of
Subliminal
remembering.
teaching,
Yeah.
subliminal
Uh,
teaching. you know,
David G. Oh, yes, he's got it. Avoid a kid.
about a kid. Absolutely.
Oh man, that is a Limerick hat to anybody who doesn't recognize those the county badge.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I forgot. You've kept it clean too. You've kept it in
Oh, I
good shape.
have. I have. Well, unfortunately, well, fortunately for me, I live in a place where it rains 10 days a year. So you get the other, you know, 345, but
Yeah, we're keeping
keep it
that
going.
rain on file for you over here. David G, always an absolute pleasure for me, and I know all our listeners and viewers. Thanks so much. I highly recommend David's two books, De-Stressifying and Secrets of Meditation. If you haven't got them, make sure you get them. Find him on Insight Timer. Um, Find him on davidg.com and his courses and teacher training and all that good stuff. And of course, that's where I did my teacher training as well. So, David G, thank you so much, my friend.
Dermot, thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for continuing to step outside of your comfort zone and keep expanding because I can see your glow from here, and I'm about 7,000 miles away from you. And I can feel it. I feel your energy. You're doing such powerful and beautiful work. And you are one of the forces on our planet today that's raising the vibration of the planet. So thank you for just being so brilliant. So I'm so grateful that we're connected.
You're too kind. Well, I learned from the best. Thank you. We'll talk soon.
Okay.